So 7 years ago, something pretty traumatic happened to our family when I was pregnant. We decided to change our entire lives, sell our condo, sell everything we owned, and we bought a 240 square foot tiny house on Kijiji for $60,000. Now, 7 years later, I'm standing in that tiny house in our kitchen. It's a nice little cozy space. It's where we do all of our cooking. We added the countertop. We added a lot more cabinet space underneath. This is actually original to the house. And then we added a bigger sink. They did have an oven, a tiny kind of camp stove in here before, but we took that out as we're a family that likes to barbecue instead of, kind of wasting counter space for some kind of cooking object. Now we just have our coffee maker on here, and that's pretty much it. So as you can see, there really aren't a lot of things in here that your average house has. However, that's very intentional. We don't use a microwave, we don't use an oven, we do a lot of cooking that entails the barbecue. Now, everything is very pared down. So of course we live very minimalistically, so we adopt those principles heavily into our life. We have 4 plates, 4 bowls, we've got a few extra mugs because we love coffee. We're not big drinkers, so we have a few pieces of glassware, but otherwise, this is basically what you see is what you get. In our drawers over here, we do have a cutlery drawers and different things, but again, it's very pared down. So where you would find, in more traditional homes, you'd have like the big turkey baster, and you'd have, all of the accoutrement and the guest dishes and all of the things that just the invisible clutter that gets tucked away. We don't have any of that because we don't really need it. When we entertain, we have some extra things we bring outside, but we're having harvest dinners, we're bringing community together. That's the point of living in this small space. On this side of the kitchen is where we do a lot of our food prep and making our lunches and different things. So of course, you've noticed we don't have any cooking system in the kitchen, but we do have an air fryer and we do have an induction burner. When we need it, we pull it out, it comes on the counter, we do our cooking, and then it goes back away. So one of the things that I love about the forcible living in a small space is it forces us to keep our surfaces clear. Because we don't have a lot of storage, it forces us to keep our invisible spaces also clear. So again, less clutter, less things, and less ways for things to go missing. So we have a 22-inch fridge and a freezer. The reason this works is because we actually order from a food ordering service, and we order 3 meals for $80 a week that come from local farmers and a local area, which is really great. So not only are we supporting local, but those meals come at a great time. Our family's really busy. We do a lot of things. We don't have a lot of storage, and it works perfectly. We don't have a huge pantry full of food. We don't have to go to Costco to do $600 Costco visits. It just works for our family. Budget-wise, it keeps it much more intentional and much lower. One thing that I find with paring down into a more minimalist lifestyle is all of that was very overwhelming for me. And the reason it was overwhelming was because when I was pregnant with Bodhi and had him early, the issue there was that I felt very overwhelmed spatially, and I felt like I had too many things that were taking away from what really mattered at that time, which was taking care of my son. So when there was extra dishes, the dishwasher was full and the sink was full and I had extra coming in, I would end up being so overwhelmed that I'd just order out because I didn't want to mess anything up. I'd be spending all my time cleaning and I could never really catch up to it. So living in a small space, you don't have the room for that. You cannot do it. So when you intentionally move into a small space, downsizing, eliminating that spatial overwhelm, changing systems and habits that we had grown up with, learning and unlearning all of the ways our parents did things, and knowing that that's not how we need to do things. We don't have to have all the big things. Literally, we've lived in here for 7 years, and this is all we have needed. Our friends might disagree, they might have all the things, but at the end of the day, what always happens after all of those conversations is every single person said, I'm gonna go purge because I want this. This feels good. This feels clear. This feels clean. Our living room is small, but very cozy, and it's intentionally designed that way. So we decided to put an entire sectional in our tiny house, and here's why. When we first bought this thing, we thought small space, small couch. So we bought a small couch. Well, my husband is about 6'4", and that didn't work out. We got our small couch in our space, and he crumbled inwardly. Nobody had a good time, no one could be cozy together. So we bought this whole big sectional from IKEA. They do small space design very well. And now we do everything in here. So this is a very multi-purpose space. So we eat here, we hang out here. It is the hub of our tiny house. We don't really ever feel like we're on top of each other because we all kind of have our own sectors. You can see that there's a lot of cozy pillows. We always have cozy blankets all around. And the focal point of our tiny house here is our pride and joy, our Grizzly Cubic Mini fireplace. This puppy heats our entire house. It actually can heat up to 600 square feet, but this is only 240. So let me just paint you a picture of our cozy mornings. We come downstairs, we sit here, my husband lights the fire and also makes the coffee. I have my very own trad wife, and we hang out in this space and get cozy. We've got a teensy little TV back there. Yes, people in tiny homes also watch TV. This space is amazing, we love it, and anyone else who's looking to get a tiny house or a tiny space, sectionals are the hill I will die on. One of the most common questions I get is, where do you put your shoes? Where do you put your coats? And how does that indoor to outdoor transition work in a tiny house? And it's a very good question. And honestly, it is tough a lot of the time, especially where I live. One of the things that we do need to do is switch things out seasonally. So we have capsule wardrobes, which allow us to have different seasonalities in different areas. So for our jackets, we hang them at the front door on our curtain rod. And then we also have a hutch at the front door that doubles as our shoe storage, our junk drawer storage, and it also allows us to store things on top. This is everything that a typical house would have, just much more condensed. Our bathroom is very simple. We have a mulch basin composting toilet, so our tiny house is partially off-grid. Having a composting toilet means we need a gray water system, so we do have a gray water system with the house as well. With the bathroom comes the shower. So we do have a shower in here. I wish we had a tub. That is something that if I were to design my own tiny house, I would 100% put in a tub. I miss baths, I'm not gonna lie. We have to be very intentional with this space. It's not very big. We can't have a lot of things. I love my beauty products and my makeup and all of the things that the next girl loves, but I have to be very intentional about what goes in here. I'm also very intentional about it because I don't spend a lot of money on a lot of things. I spend a lot of money on very few things that can be then really good products and very well made, ethically, organic, those types of things. That's also something we need to consider because we do have the gray water system. We need to use products that are gray water safe. We have open style storage for our towels, which to us, again, one of the concepts of having open storage is when you see it, you don't want it to be cluttered, so you make it look nice. So overall, we love our bathroom. We've used it for about 7 years and we have everything in here that we need. The only thing I wish is we had a tub and a quieter toilet. Throughout my pregnancy, I was working in a really high-intense, high-paced environment. I was a maitre d' running large weddings and events. I had to run all day, 13-hour shifts, continually growing more and more pregnant. Nobody that I worked with had a baby, or upper management didn't really understand what I was going through when I asked for help. I worked one wedding that specifically was quite traumatic, and I ended up spraining my round ligament and straining my pubic bone, and unfortunately that led me to bed rest. Now that was only about 7 months pregnant. So about a month later, I finally finished working at another job and my water broke in the middle of the night. I was 6 weeks early, we were panicking, it was a very scary time. We ended up in the hospital and we stayed in the NICU for a week because Bodhi was 5 pounds 9 ounces, which was actually quite big for a premature baby, which was great. But it was the scariest thing I've ever been through. And the week in the NICU, I did a lot of thinking. I knew that working so hard at my job led me to this point. We decided to pursue alternative living. We landed on a tiny house within 3 months. Found it on Kijiji, went to visit it, stayed at the house, fell in love, knew this was for us, found a place to put it, which is half the battle, to be honest. We have gone from spending almost $4,000 a month on all of our expenses, and now we only have our very few car payments, phone payments, groceries, so we don't pay anything for our house. Our house has been completely paid off. We don't pay anything to live on the property that we're at because we actually have a sweat equity exchange and a land stewardship agreement where we live. So we actually caretake the property where we live and where we're land leasing. For our family, there was nothing better than that, getting rid of the mental stress of the financial stress. And 7 years later, we're living in our house, we're living our best life. I have a thriving 8-year-old child who he loves his tiny house. We have a very strong marriage. I have built 3 different businesses out of this industry and out of this movement. I inspire other people to live tiny. There's so much that just that one thing that went wrong we were able to change our lives forever. And I mean, here we are. It's been amazing. This is one of my favorite rooms in the house. Well, actually, it's the only other room in the house. But this is Bodhi's room. So our son Bodhi, he's almost 8, and he has really done his best to make this space his own, considering this is also our wardrobe. My husband and I have our wardrobe in here, and it's all open concept as well. Bodhi has his own capsule wardrobe as well. So behind me here, you can see where all of his clothes are hanging. We've got bins for his clothes, and some of his clothes are switched out seasonally as well. But the good thing about this is we have a lot of small space storage designs on and in this wardrobe. We have a lot of hangers that have multiple hangers on it. We've got a lot of baskets. This room is really exciting because I have seen a baby transform into living in a tiny house. This is possibly one of the smallest bedrooms that you'll see for a child to have. And of course, we'll add a little bit more onto the tiny house when he gets older. And he has organized it in this way himself. So you can imagine children's rooms have tons of things strewn out all the time. And this is really special to me because one of the big reasons why we downsized, one of the biggest reasons why we did this was having Bodhi early was really overwhelming. And in our condo, I struggled with spatial overwhelm. There were too many things. Everything that I thought I needed to have a baby, all the shiny trinkets and the big toys and all the, the play pens, none of that helped me. And so when it came to living in the tiny house, we really went about it very intentionally, and I'm really glad that that has adopted into Bodhi's style and, Bodhi's kind of design where he gets to have his own space and make it nice and neat and cozy for him. Cozy is the name of the game for our family. And that's really amazing because we're learning not to consume. We're not buying tons of things for him. We're not shoving all the things in this space, and as you can see, that's come across. He's very grounded, really enjoys memories. Everything in his room has a memory attached to it. It's not just a toy that has existed in the universe that he's been given. I just thought it was really nice to share the story of how he has grown up in a tiny house and what kind of tiny person that's turned him into being. And that really shows in this space, and that's kind of why it's one of my favorite rooms in the house.
I'm Bodhi and I'm 8 years old. I used to have it like that shelf was up there and this shelf was down there. But then we rearranged everything. And then I got a fish. The story how I got a fish is actually I was wanting to get a pet on the way back from Costa Rica on the airplane in the middle of the flight. And I said, "Can I get a fish?" And they said yes. So I've had Ocean here for about a year or 2. This is Rosie, my dog. We got her yesterday. I'm the only one in my whole school who has a tiny house, but I think it's cool. My favorite part of the tiny house is probably my room. I just like my room because it's cozy and it's fun. Thanks for stopping by, yeah.
Welcome to our loft. We have a queen-size bed in our loft. 2 people sleep very successfully up here. We have 2 each side tables that look pretty much the same but act very differently. We really love this space. We have a nice big TV at the end of our bed, which we love and we watch every single night. I love this space. It's really great. It's really cozy. I love sleeping in the loft because I like sleeping in a condensed space. I find that we forget humans aren't made to burrow naturally, so that to me is really indicative of this space and how cozy it is, and I love it. We probably won't be able to sleep in a loft for our whole lives. However, right now, I can't see myself living and sleeping in anything else, to be honest. I love the drop ceiling. I love feeling cozy. I love feeling burrowed. In fact, when I sleep in hotel rooms and other different spaces with high ceilings, I feel too exposed. And so this kind of nature of burrowing really allows me to feel that hibernation that we get in our seasons in Canada, which I love. Now, moving forward, of course, I will not be able to climb stairs for the rest of my life. So definitely a main floor bedroom in another smaller space. We will graduate probably out of the tiny house within the next few years and buy kind of a small, more intentional house by the lake as well. So we'll still keep this tiny house. 240 square feet for 3 people can get a bit tight, and as Bodhi gets older, we will need more space. So this loft will not be forever, but for now it's perfect. So if you didn't know, I'm a tiny house consultant and sustainable living specialist, and I also build tiny homes. So one of the really amazing things that tiny house living gave me was the ability to start my own business. And I took that and I ran with it. And I decided that I was going to be somebody who actually found solutions to tiny living instead of just living tiny. And it worked. So I live in Ontario, Canada, and here we have a huge housing issue, just like everywhere else. And there are a lot of different abilities to live alternatively in a specific sense, but not fully and not year-round. So I took it upon myself to create a tiny home zoning bylaw that allowed for people to live in their own tiny home on private property as a leased tiny home tenant. And that bylaw has successfully gone through in the province of Ontario. There are other provinces that are adopting it. And essentially, you just use the additional dwelling unit bylaw that is going all across Canada. You can use it in the US. They have additional dwelling unit bylaws as well. It's really just, to be honest, guys, I saw something and I looked at it a different way and I created some little zoning bylaw, tied it up with a bow, presented it back to municipalities, and everybody fell in love with it. And honestly, it was just because thinking a little bit differently allowed me to be able to figure that out. And so with these zoning bylaws that exist, I realize it's very overwhelming and there's a lot of things that occur with it and they're very multifaceted. But know that tiny living is possible and can be legal. Your dream is so much closer than honestly you think it is. What matters is you do the due diligence, you reach out to the right people, you find out what the laws are, and you go from there. There are a lot of people who are going to stand in your way, and there are a lot of people who are going to try and sell you some really not good advice. I'm not saying I'm the right person for you. I'm saying I'm going to share with you the appropriate due diligence that you can do to unlock your dream. And you can find me online at thegivingtreefamily.tinyhome on Instagram, and at sweetbuilders.ca if you're looking to build a land lease tiny home in somebody else's backyard with your own tiny home. So I'm here to help.